Hello, welcome to Jews with the News. I'm Eli.
I'm Jack, and we got a fantastic episode on the way. Really excited about it. But first, before we get into that, did you hear the recent news about the new GM that was hired
I
for the
did
Marlins?
for the Miami Marlins,
Yes,
Kim Ng,
yes.
and she became the first female GM to be hired for any major sports team in the US, right?
And she became the first Asian American GM of baseball.
Right,
So she broke two barriers,
two barriers.
which is pretty impressive.
Pretty impressive, yeah. I think it's kind of cool because she worked for the Yankees for a long time, I think, and she like won a World Series with them, I think. And then she ended up being hired by Derek Jeter, who owns the Miami Marlins. So I thought that
Right.
that was kind of full circle.
And it's about time because like I feel like for a GM like in a sports, like that shouldn't be just a male job. Like that doesn't make sense. Like the
Yeah.
job description, it like I don't understand where that stigmatism even came from in the beginning.
Hmm.
And now that this is broken, I hope most more teams consider more female representatives for any like job listing on
Yeah,
their organization.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, sports in general has a problem with like, um, you know, sexism and like gender
Right.
ratios and things like that. And so every breakthrough is huge. And hopefully, Kimming won't screw things up too badly with the Marlins, but either way, it doesn't really matter because this is
Right.
still a huge step.
Right. Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
On that note, we'd like to introduce our guest for this episode. Sam, would you like to join us?
I would love to join y'all. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, would
Okay,
you? No, go
you
ahead.
go. I
Well,
was just going to say, for those of you who don't know, this is Sam Khan. He is my brother. And
Can
yeah,
confirm.
that's about it. That's all I know about him. So,
nice. Well, yeah, we're here to have a great conversation. Let's start off first. Sam, you are a school teacher. You're a public school teacher for Teach for America, is that correct?
I'm a public school teacher with Teach for America.
With
So
Teach for
I'm
America.
affiliated with Teach for America. They sort of like are in my camp still, but really they set up my job, and I still have requirements as a core member. It's a 2-year requirement, so I'm still a part of Teach for America, but my employer is the Dallas Independent School District. So I'm teaching in Dallas. I'm a 6th grade English teacher right now at the Harold Wendell Lang Senior Middle School. Shout out, go Pioneers. Yeah, so that's sort of where I'm at right now. I mean, I would love to have the opportunity to tell you more about my experiences and about what I've noticed about systems so far. So, yeah.
okay. So, would you like to touch up upon like what Teach for America does first, or like what they're trying to do, or do you want to talk about like your specific experience teaching in the Dallas Public School District?
I was thinking a lot about this in the past couple days, how I wanted to sort of frame this. And I was having a really hard time like separating my experiences to like the larger themes that I've noticed in the education system. So I think that's a good idea to start with Teach for America. So Teach for America is eventually exactly founded to like bridge the achievement gap across like certain segments of the population that are typically underserved. And the idea is that we have a broad and diverse coalition of people across the country. It's a very expansive network to sort of attack this problem. And is it the perfect solution? Absolutely not. Like there are definitely problems with Teach for America, and sort of how it's run. It's deep connections to charter schools, et cetera, which is not really a secret. It's been written extensively about, but it's debated. But I've had generally positive experiences with Teach for America overall on that end. And then like, I sort of view my experiences with Teach for America a little bit separate than my experiences at my school, just because the cultures are very different in Teach for America versus the public school system. So that's sort of what Teach for America is all about. I'm very lucky because Teach for America in Dallas has a very, very expansive network of core members. So, so there are like hundreds of people who are doing the same thing as me with me, and that's how I've made all my connections here in Dallas so far. And yeah, so as Teach for America in Dallas has partnered with SMU, Southern Methodist University. That's how I was originally trained at Institute. That was a long summer.
You were back in the dorms for those?
Yeah, it was like freshman year all over again. Yeah. Pre-COVID freshman year all over again. Like I got a roommate. Everyone was just like hanging out in each other's rooms. But waking up super early, it was a great shared experience. And now like SMU has provided discounts for me to pursue a master's of education degree currently. So it's made it really easy. I'm very lucky to be a part of this.
So you mentioned being able to pursue your master's in teaching through SMU. Is that generally like when you join Teach for America, is that like the end goal for a lot of people who join?
Good question. Teach for America is very explicit when we join that it is like a 2-year commitment. And then, I mean, I have friends going on to all sorts of things. Like I have friends who are going to be doctors. I have friends who are going to continue teaching. I'm trying to pursue I'm applying to PhD programs right now. So it's just going to be like people, I know people who are going to law school after this, like a lot of people who are educational policy, that's sort of the idea, like I was talking about before, the broad and diverse coalition is that people take their experiences in Teach for America or with Teach for America into whatever field that they go in. So they learn from the systemic inequities that we've experienced firsthand, and then able to advocate for these communities that are underserved, sort of on every different level, whether that's in healthcare, in education, in academia, in law, whatever. So it really varies on what people are doing after Teach for America. It's a lot of people are staying teachers, but a lot of people aren't, which is part of the problem too, with Teach for America inherently, that they are placing people in these schools who probably won't be there for very long. So it's hard for them to build a just general trust. And it's just so I guess that makes it just case by case overall, but yeah.
So what made you interested in joining Teach for America? Why did you pursue this program?
So the reason why I joined Teach for America in the first place was because I felt like I have been extremely privileged in my upbringing. I mean, so have both of you, frankly. I mean, I know right. Jack has because, yeah. But yeah, because I have been extremely privileged and I wanted to have an opportunity to give back and sort of learn firsthand what people in this country are facing. So that was my original mindset going in. A big problem that people have with Teach for America is that sort of you have the like the white guy sort of swooping in with his cape, like trying to like fix all of the problems, you know, and that is very real. I've been like really struggling with that on like, because like I want to sort of be a part of the solution, but not have, but like really be in it, and not sort of outside of it and above it coming in. So that's been one thing that I have really had to focus on my own like biases and my own issues that I've developed naturally throughout my life. And it's been an absolutely transformative experience for myself personally. And I've learned so much about my kids' experiences. And I think that I have, I've really made also a positive impact so far on a lot of my students' lives. And I'm very proud of that so far.
As you said, we come from a privileged setting. We grew up privileged, and we recognize that. And you're teaching in the inner city in the city in Dallas. So it generally the students aren't generally all white, and they didn't grow up like we did, right?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, I don't
Right.
have a single white student.
Okay.
I have like the population of my school is half Black, half Hispanic, and it is almost all of them are economically disadvantaged. They have that like sort of tag. So you know, this is a big problem that we're facing, is that like technically our schools are desegregated, but they are extremely segregated. Like there's not a single white student in the school. There actually, okay, I take that back. There are probably a few white students in the school, and they stand out. I stand out as a white teacher. You know, there are a couple other white teachers, and you know, it's there. Just to be completely honest, there is a cultural barrier that I've learned how to sort of navigate, and that's been part of my experiences. But yeah, our schools are segregated. This was one of like the systemic problems that I wanted to touch upon, and there are several others that I wanted to bring up. But really, what I've realized in my experiences, and basically just like my outside research and my education with SMU for my master's, is how really like I want to say like connected all of the systemic racism is. Like you can look at systemic racism in education, and systemic racism in housing policy, and systemic racism in healthcare and access to food, and it is all so interwoven together that like you can't solve like the segregation and achievement gap problems in education without addressing housing at the same time, or else like they, because the quality of, it's really the quality of life for the students they're bringing in to the schools. So it's just it's really opened my eyes to the magnitude of the problem, that it's like it's in education, and also just systemic racism, which we have all been grappling with since, I mean, for a while, but especially since like this summer, in June, when Black Lives Matter sort of increased its presence and permeation in our psyche. So yeah, I think that absolutely are like my students are not growing up with the same same opportunities as we did, not even close. Like it, for us, the assumption was we will go to college, and a lot of them, the assumption is that they won't, you know, like, and then like, so it's just hard to like to figure out how my role as a sixth grade English teacher is in all of this. it's been hard to navigate. And really what I've been trying to focus on is just my personal relationships with the students. The students in my classroom is like a mini system. Like I'm a part of a much larger system of inequity that is extremely hard to grapple with. But right now, what I'm focused on is my mini system in my classroom. So
Yeah, so do you maybe want to talk about that mini system as you put it? I know you said that, you kind of have to you kind of had to overcome some cultural barriers and it's been hard. There were a lot of, difficulties in terms of making connections. So do you want to talk about kind of your experience as being a teacher for these, 20 kids?
yeah, for sure. Well, I have like 70-ish kids because
Oh.
I've just because I like they change classes, so I have like 3 or 4 different classes. But yeah, I mean, my first year was a struggle. I didn't really know what I was doing. I was sort of a fish out of water, and I was not very confident in the classroom, and the kids sort of picked up on that. This year has been very different. I have a great time at work, like right now, just because I love being with the kids. I love, like, we are forming great relationships. Like, they know that they can trust me, and I've like really connected with them on a very personal level, despite the pandemic. And we are like, it's sort of like we are in person learning right now, 100%, but it's an option for the students if they want to. So half my students are in person, half my students are online right now. So obviously it's been easier to build those relationships with the students and build in person. But I think just like, even for the students at home, it's been hard for like accountability purposes and like making sure that they're focused during the lessons. And we could talk more about that, the problems with that later. But, just like, I've really tried to expose myself more as just like myself. Like, I'm a human being. Like, I'm here for you. Like, I was a camp counselor for a really long time, as Jack knows. And like those experiences of like just learning how to connect with kids has really, really impacted my teaching style. Because I'm much more friendly, like real with them, and other teachers in the school are more of just like a more authoritative style. And obviously that comes with pros and cons, but I'm trying to build a trusting community, especially right now where they have been they were deprived of in-person instruction for such a long time, and maybe like anyone, like the role of a teacher is also like to just be sort of like a role model, especially as like a young teacher. So I'm just trying to be that for them. That's definitely like one of my top priorities this year. Like, obviously the instruction, teaching the students how to read is incredibly important. But what I found is that comes with the relationships. So the relationship systems that I've built has allowed that instruction piece, because the buy-in from the students is so much when they don't want to disappoint Mr. Khan. You know what I mean? Because they know that he's counting on them, that he's there for them. So it's like, what I see it is like as an investment into the instructional piece. You could view it that way, or you could just view it as, I'm just here for the kids, like on a personal level. Like that's why I've really been loving my job. And working with the adults has been less easy for me. And we can talk about some of those reasons why, if that's something.
Go ahead. You can explain it.
Okay, cool. So it has nothing to do with like the actual individual adults. It has to do with the incentive system that like is sort of built into public education, especially in Dallas. My job is, so the subject that I teach, 6th grade reading, is STAR tested. So that's like a state test standardized across the state. Every sixth grader takes the exact same test with the same standards. So basically the curriculum is all teaching towards that test, because the incentives are there for the administration at my school to beef up those test scores, because then funding and more students are coming to the school, and that's the incentives, is test scores, test scores, test scores. And when the students are reduced to a test score, I have found that their well-being has taken sort of a backseat. So the reason why it's been so hard for me to work with the adults in my school is not because the adults don't care at about the students' well-being, but just that sometimes the incentives make it such that the test scores come first. And that is not my priority. I know that my students need to have the test scores so that way they can advance. Like, they have to work within the system. So I have to help them get there. But like I said, I have found that follows from genuinely adhering to the student's social emotional well-being, and building those relationships and differentiating instruction based on student needs and student affective needs, meaning like their emotional styles. So that's sort of why it's been hard, is because there's a lot of, everything is standardized. So it's very much of like a compliance based system, in which like the administrators respond to the district in like a compliant way. Like, you have these things that you need to do and you have to do them, comply, or you're not doing your job. And then the administrators to the teachers, it's the same way: comply, comply, comply. And then as a result, it's the same for the relationships between the students and the teachers. So we are just like providing them, and then you have to comply, rather than like pushing them to like greater heights, or like helping them realize like their own voice, but rather just comply, like answer this multiple choice question, like underline key details, like write your key idea off to the side, and you did the lesson, you answered the multiple choice question right, like you complied, you did your role as a student. So compliance is like a big buzzword, because it's like we have to comply, we're supposed to comply. But personally, that's not how I am. Like, I am not a compliance-based person. I like to think for myself. I like to be creative. I like to think of new solutions, find new problems that need solutions, and like put values first rather than just compliance. And that's what's made my job hard for me.
Is this mindset, I want to go back to like your training with Teach for America, because obviously most of your coworkers didn't do Teach for America and becoming a teacher. So I'm wondering if that mindset that you have about like being there for the students, was that taught in Teach for America, or like, is that just something that you just differ from everybody else?
It's I want to make this clear. It's not like I differ from that from everybody else. And like, to be honest, I find myself like as a like following into this system, because those are the incentives in the system. Like, the people that I work with, I care about the students and care about the students' well-being.
Right.
And I just want to make that clear. I know that, like, I just want to say that again, because like it's the system's incentives that sort of undermines the student's individuality and the student's well-being often, and not the mindset, sometimes the mindset of individual actors, but oftentimes, like, teachers are in it for the kids. Principals are in it for the kids. like generally, you know what I mean? So I just want to make that clear. Teach for America, the acceptance rate is low. It's like it's like 10% of applicants like are accepted into Teach for America. I just like pulled that number out. I think it's close, but I'm not exactly certain. So like they're looking for, in the interview process, they're looking for people who have the experiences, are in the right mindset already. So I found that like my friends I've made in Teach for America are incredibly passionate people, incredibly like smart and hardworking people who are like, whose values align with my own. And that's because of how Teach for America, at least in Dallas, has sort of made their decisions on who they are accepting. Now, again, there are individuals that like people who I haven't clicked with as well for whatever reason. But again, Teach for America as an institute, as like a public institution, is extremely flawed. Extremely. So I don't want to make it out that like Teach for America is like golden boy and like going into like solve the problems, because they're also creating new problems themselves. And so, yeah.
Okay, I want to go into your experience in handling the pandemic as a teacher. So if we could go back to 8 months ago, in March, when the pandemic kind of first started to like become like a serious thing in America that Americans started to take seriously. Do you want to explain kind of what happened last year while teaching?
Sure. So basically spring break hit, and when spring break happened, we didn't know what was going to happen. And then we got the notification that we weren't going to be back during spring break. So everyone was learning from home. There weren't systems in place to ensure students were being held accountable. You know, the STAR test, which is our curriculum, was canceled. So we were just sort of left like what is it now? Like what are we doing now? You know, so it's just like it became very muddled after all of that happened. You know, like, so very little learning was happening after March of last semester, just in my school in particular and across the district. You know, I recorded myself like reading a chapter of the Hunger Games every day to my kids, just like if they wanted to, like they could have like sort of that connection, like seeing me, hearing my voice, like listening to a story, like building that reading comprehension and fluency still. So like kind of had to get like some you had to get creative to like really provide for what the kids needed. But since we've been back, it's been nerve-wracking. I mean, like, it's kind of crazy at my school because we are in person. We are Go. Our students, half our students are at home still, so they log on to Zoom. So I'm standing in front of my class, and I've got my computer here with half my kids on it, and then everyone else is sort of behind the computer in the classroom, like 6 feet apart, like masks on, like plexiglass shields in front of them. So, I mean, it's just a struggle to create a classroom community, which is what I'm going for. When you have half the people right in front of my face and half the people behind the camera. So it's just like, I've been trying to empower student voice and like getting discussion and building those relationships in other ways. But I mean, the students are moving from like class to class. So how we've done it is like, no matter where your next class is, when the students leave my room, they go to the right. So everyone is always like sort of winding in a clockwork circle, and then like just getting off at their like exit basically. So our hallways are like still like a manageable socially distant like crowd basically. um it's obviously like these sixth graders like don't always like keep their masks above their nose, don't always like, it is what it is. We remind them. We had a couple cases at my school so far. It hasn't been like that bad. But one thing that like one like philosophy that is like sort of deeply entrenched in education is this notion of carceral logic. Have y'all heard of this term before? So it has the same root of incarceration. So like sort of this logic or this mode of thinking that that punishes first and assumes wrongdoing until sort of shown otherwise. And this is, I mean, I think it's tied to what I was talking about earlier with compliance and the standardized and racism. And so this carceral logic is very deeply entrenched. And since COVID hit, it's like there are forces at work trying to maintain this carceral logic. Like, and I honestly, I don't even know where I stand on this yet, but this is one example that we talk about in my classes about this. Like all students must have their cameras on. And if not, like they are in trouble. They are assumed not to be working. They are like, that is sort of the mindset that, and honestly, I prefer to have my students' cameras on, just because that's just accountability. I like to see their face. I feel like I'm able to make more of a connection when I can respond to sort of how they are. But yeah, I mean, like it's just this. It's been interesting how the system of carceral logic has sort of like maintained itself in this time of like this moment where it is extremely difficult to hold students accountable. So people who hold this carceral logic in their psyche, and we all do because it's so deep rooted, that it's just made it like very difficult to uphold that, and yet it's still like trying to like keep its like premier like status essentially as like the way we think about policing our kids, which is absolutely tragic that is what is going on. But that's like one of the philosophical discussions that is going on right now in the in like education, in academia, basically. So I wanted to bring that up.
So as we continue this conversation, I think our time is running a little bit low. So if there is anything else that you would like to bring up about this topic, please go ahead. We will extend any amount of time. Otherwise, we could end it here. It's up to you.
No, I'm good. I just wanted to also say with this one last thing and this is just an example of something that happened. So it actually happened to my girlfriend Abby, like in this last week. She's a seventh grade science teacher, and just like everything for the students is standardized, it's very standardized on how the teachers are evaluated. It's called TEI in Texas. So basically these are just like the standards that the teachers have, and that's how we're evaluated. And she was telling a coworker about how like her students were having this great in-depth philosophical scientific discussion about like natural selection and evolution. And they were like debating, and it was like a free form conversation. And she was telling this to another teacher. And this teacher was like, oh, that's awesome, because if a principal came in and they were having this conversation, that would be great for your TEI score. And like, that was just like, when Abby told me that, I just felt like I was in like chapter 2 of a dystopian novel, like where the individuality of these students and like the amazing rich discussion that they were having was just, the value of that was just sucked out of it. And then it was all like, how does this impact the standards that we are trying to meet? It's just, I just wanted to like sort of close with that, because I thought that story sort of is indicative of a lot of the things that we've talked about. So that's all.
Well, thank you
Well,
so much
yes.
for, talking with us, sharing your experiences. We really appreciate it.
For sure. It was fun.
Okay. I guess that's it.
That's it.
Again, thank you, Sam, for joining us, and we'll catch everybody on the next episode.
Yeah.
All right. See ya.